joining me tonight is Celeste Donovan. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. Why do you want to be the City Councillor for the Coastal Ward?
Well, there's a number of reasons, but the main reason is I feel like I have a real connection to the community. One of the roles that I'm currently holding is I'm chair of the local residents association, as well as another community organisation, and they're both in a voluntary capacity. And I found that through that work, I've developed a really good understanding of what's happening in the community, and that's across the coastal ward. And obviously the communities here have really sort of passionate residents, and I'm really keen to be a strong voice on behalf of the community, because I feel like I understand the issues, but I also understand some of the barriers to engagement with council. So I think in order to make a difference, you need to be at council and having a seat at the table. So that's why I've put myself forward.
You talk about the barriers. There certainly are many barriers. It seems to be, New Brighton in particular, seems to be the suburb that's been forgotten by the council. Yes, there's been the hot pools, playgrounds, those types of things, but the fundamentals like roads are still staffed. In your view, why?
It's a very good question. I think that there's a number of reasons. I know that there's been significant investment in the east, but at the same time, I think that there's been a failure to sort of address some of the basics, and that's been reflected in feedback from residents and also the council's own surveys, where, you know, generally people, the roads and footpaths are the things that people find are the areas that they're less satisfied with. But in the coastal water is a particular issue, and it's not just the roads and footpaths that people are struggling with, but it's general maintenance of public spaces. People see the bus stop and people have to sit out in the rain. So it's all those sort of things that people care about and do wonder why it hasn't been addressed. And I do think it comes back to making sure that communities are heard at a council level and having a strong advocate and voice that really understands the issues and can speak at council on behalf of residents and express those views.
Yeah, it's really important because there is that disconnect, or the perceived disconnect, that there's not enough communication between the councillors, the council staff and everybody else. And that's why there is this perception, whether it's right or wrong, that New Brighton's just left for its own devices.
I think that the perception, I think it is a fair perception in that there are things that could be done better. My own experiences of working with communities is that there are like more complicated things, but there are also really simple things that would make a difference. So one of the things that people tell me is that they would love to meet with councillors on a regular basis, so have a drop-in session. The Resident Association ran a poll and we got some feedback on really simple things that the council and their elected members could be doing that would make a really big difference. Another thing is, holding meetings outside of general council hours. Not everyone's available to turn up. Young mums can't come at 5 o'clock or 4:30 when the meeting's held. So there are really simple things that can be done. And I think the second part of that is looking at what the barriers are and sort of systematically trying to address those at a council level. But I think the first step is understanding what the issues are, and that's where I say I bring something to the table. Let's
discuss an issue, and that's what I'm asking all the candidates. If you had to choose just one issue that's facing Christchurch that you believe is a big issue, what would that be?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back to what we've already talked about. It is a citywide issue, but it's also a coastal issue. And for both the city and the coastal ward, the main thing that I think is lacking is that council processes and the way the council is operating is not connecting with residents. So, a lot of people don't even engage with council. I think it's 36% of people said they don't understand how council works. People want to be involved, but there aren't really clear avenues for involvement. And I think if there were better ways of operating and actually stronger advocates within the community, then you would get more engagement. And by not getting more people engaged, and you're losing a lot of valuable knowledge from the community. And I think the other thing is that you're only sort of getting a very small segment of the community who's getting heard. So, that does lead to a disconnection.
Celeste, you're standing as an independent. Why?
It's a good question. I believe that it's really important that in local government in particular, that the voices of communities are heard at council. We're elected to represent a ward, and the local issues in the ward, each ward do differ. And whilst we are elected to have a sort of a bigger outlook across the city, and that's important, it is actually really important to be an independent voice so you can speak to the local issues and be a strong advocate. And I've chosen to be an independent, even though it is quite, there are some challenges with that, because of course I don't have the resources or the finances that I would have if I was running on a party ticket. But I think it is actually more important that we have more independent people on council so that we can make some real progress on things that will move the city and my community forward.
All right, on that note, you got the likes of People's Choice, a very strong political grouping here in Christchurch with obviously a lot of money. How do you fancy your chances?
I believe that communities really, they understand who is connected and plugged into the community. And, I'm running because I think I'm the best candidate. I wouldn't be running because it is a big commitment if I didn't think I could win. And the reason I'm running, one of the reasons I'm running is because I've been encouraged by members of the community to run, and they're people from across the political divide. So, I think my view is that I can be the best advocate when I can work with people from across, different parties and different viewpoints. And I think I've shown that through the work I've done in the community, which is why I've been encouraged to run for council. So, yeah, I think I've got a shot. I hope people get out and vote.
Hopefully they will. Celeste, what's your day job?
So my background is research. So I used to work for an organisation that was focused on looking at UN sanctions in relation to North Korea. I moved on for that role because I'm currently involved in working on a project actually in New Brighton, which is a commercial residential development. So I'm doing some project coordination for that particular project. And outside that, I'm freelancing. And that's freed me up quite a bit because I've taken on quite a lot of other commitments in terms of community involvement. But if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, my plan is that I won't be taking on any other commitments, and I'll be committing myself full-time to the job because I think it is a full-time job and people should approach it as such.
Well, if you've got an interest in North Korea diplomacy, it's similar to the way New Brighton works with the council perhaps, so maybe that will add to your experience and maybe that's a good thing.
I would hope so. I think the ability to be reasonably diplomatic but also understand the issues and be able to communicate them in a clear way is hopefully going to be a strength at council and in the community.
Okay, just finally, Celeste, as I'm asking all councillors, why should we vote for you? In about 30 seconds, go for it.
Sure. I think people should vote for me because I'm a strong and independent voice. I understand the issues and I know what the barriers are, and I believe that I know how to work within council and the processes there to get results. I know how to work with other people, and I know what the issues are to move New Brighton forward, because it is a fantastic area, and all the community wants is really just someone that recognises that and is going to push for the things that we deserve.
Independent candidate Celeste Donovan, I wish you well and thanks so much for your time this evening.
Thanks very much, Chris.